Yo, what's going on, world? It's your homeboy Cuff with the BrainSurfin podcast. We back with another one, man. I'm a little late to it. You know what I mean? I wanted to get all the information before I really went in so I can dive into it a specific way. And now that I collected a whole bunch of info, I'm going to be covering the Texas shooting that happened at this elementary school a little while back. We like this blunt. Excuse me for a second. Yeah, so I'm gonna go through it, you know what I mean, from point A to Z and describe all the things that, you know, I came across when doing my research as far as like when the shooting started, when it was reported, so forth and so on. So once again, I'm talking about the shooter in Texas. So apparently, man, first and foremost, before I even start, I just want to say we got to end up doing something about these gun laws and these background checks when it comes to these kids, when it comes to people, period. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to them being able to get guns, and then when you look into the story even more, you get even more worried because it's reported that this 18-year-old that shot up the elementary school left his school, went to his grandma's house, killed her. That was his first victim. Now I don't like to assume anything, but if you have enough rage in you, enough anger in you, enough whatever frustration in you, whatever it may be, to where you would kill a family member, it's only in me to assume that somebody knew you had some sort of mental issues because pretty sure it has been displayed to your family. You know what I'm saying? It's also word that a few days before, weeks before, whatever it may be, he had just celebrated his birthday at Applebee's dinner with the family, something like that. And I really feel like they threw it out there to kind of, throw some innocence on him a little bit. But he did what he did, and there's no coming back from it. You know what I mean? Like I said, his first victim was his grandma. So he left his school, went to his grandma's house, and killed his grandma. Wild. As the story progressed, you know what I mean, I got more information. And after he killed his grandma, he drove towards the school, ended up crashing in a ditch. So it's safe to assume he might have been driving a little fast, whatever it may be. I'm guessing no one reported the car, you know what I mean, or him driving crazy. So he made it till he got out the car and walked away the rest of the way to the school, which was a few blocks away. Now, my first question was, how did he get into school? Because you know what I mean. I like from what I know, you can't just any old body can't get into a school. So that threw me off, and then later to find out that he entered a door that was propped open by a teacher. I'm not sure if the teacher propped it open specifically for him, or if a teacher just broke the rules and codes by having the door propped open. Period. But either way it goes, like that really might have been the biggest cause of this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure it's procedures where after a certain time the doors are closed, the doors are locked. It's only probably the one main door you can go in and out freely. And even then, I would assume there's some kind of security guards or hall monitors or whatever it may be to where if someone tried to come through that door, there will be ways to diffuse the situation or get to him before he's able to get to the students. So yeah, doors propped open by a teacher, which that's how we got into the school. And at 11:32, a shooter was reported to the police. At 11:32, a shooter was reported to the police. At 11:43, which was 9 minutes later, the school announced a lockdown. So from the time that the police were told about this to the time the school did the lockdown, I'm sorry, I said 9 minutes. It was 11:43. So 11 minutes after. It took 11 minutes from when the cops were notified to where the school decided to do a lockdown. It was 11 minute span between those two things happened, right? And then almost 30 minutes later, the school announced on that there was a shooting. Almost 30 minutes later, the school announced there was a shooting on Twitter. They went on Twitter and announced it. Not sure who announced it, principal, a student, hall monitor, teacher, whatever it may be, but someone announced on Twitter 30 minutes after the school lockdown that there had been a shooting on Twitter. 6 minutes after that, at 12:23, the scene was still active, and parents were told to pick their children up from a community center. Now, how the kids would get out of the school or even feel comfortable enough to move around the school to get to the community center or whoever, I guess maybe the cops were going to try to get them to the community center. I'm not really sure, but it just makes it's a little weird to me, that they requested parents to do that. You know what I mean? All while the cops really weren't doing much of anything. So at 1:06, basically a little over 30 minutes after that, the students were told to be picked up from the community center, the shooter was finally killed by the police. So there was over an hour and a half from when the shooter was reported to police to where the shooter was actually killed by police. And what made it even more crazy is what made it even more crazy is more news came out that the cops seen a post with him talking crazy about 30 minutes before he committed any of these acts. You know what I mean? So 30 minutes before he got to doing any of these things, cops seen that he was talking crazy on social media. You know what I mean? So from the him being driving around crazy and driving into a ditch, I'm sure someone seen something and no one reported it. To him walking a few blocks from the car that fell in the ditch to the school with the gun on him. I guess he didn't look suspicious because nobody said anything. From the teacher who decided to prop open the door, whether it was for him to get in or for whatever it may be, that is like going against the code of the school, the rules of the school. So that's another mistake that led to this being possible to even happen. And then from the cops, knowing and being notified by him talking crazy how he was on social media and them not doing anything about it, not contacting the parents, not trying to contact him, doing nothing at all, to the cops taking an hour and a half from getting notified about the shooting to actually taking action and taking the shooter down. Now, the result of all of these mistakes that everybody made is 19 kids and 2 teachers all dead. Because in my head, no one played the role they're supposed to play. From the cops, like I said, once again, from the cops being notified a whole hour and a half before they actually ended up taking care of the situation, to the teacher, hall monitor, principal, whoever it may be, propping the door open, making it capable for this young man to just ease into the school with no problem at all. And then the cops, taking up their sweet time. Now, one of the kids who was at the school had actually, I guess they've been watching like scary movies or they've been watching action movies, but they were scared, so they told reporters that they took the blood from one of their classmates, rubbed it over their body, over their face and everything, and played dead for over an hour. Let that sink in. Imagine being a kid in elementary school. Everyone that's supposed to protect you from the cops, hall monitors, teachers, principals, everybody makes mistakes, which leads to an 18-year-old person who should never have a reason to be in your school, breezing in, killing 19 kids that you see on an everyday basis, and 2 teachers. And then a switch clicks in your head to rub blood on you from one of your classmates so you can play dead for over an hour. That kid will be traumatized for life. Always affected in some way, whether small or big. The school system failed in this situation, and I want to say even more that the cops failed because, like I keep saying once again, it was an hour and a half span from when the cops were notified to when they actually killed the shooter. Now, more details came out, and this was weird. Like, I guess I understand it, but being a cop and everything, I feel like you should have a better way of thinking, a better train of thought. You know what I mean? So the cops were outside the building. They were telling the kids to scream so they knew where the kids were at and they can come to them. But when the shooter would hear a student scream, the shooter would come in that room and kill that student. I don't really understand why the cops didn't just go in the building. And at first when you thinking like you're gonna have the kids scream, you can locate them, you can get to them, understandable. But if you hear screaming, and then a couple seconds pass and you hear gunshots, how many times until you realize this might not be the best idea? So that's a couple more bodies that I specifically put on the cops just right there and then for not using the right tactics in that situation. What I don't get is really why didn't the cops just enter the building? Now, he had an automatic weapon. Somebody would have got shot. One of the cops, at least two of them, three, a couple probably would have got shot. Like if I'm being honest, right? But we could have had it being from 19 kids shot and two teachers. It could have been maybe 8 kids and one teacher, just breaking it half and half. Not saying it's any better. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like the situation wouldn't be as bad because it's half the amount of bodies. But what I am saying is that's 19 kids gone. That's 19 kids' futures ruined. That's 19. That's what's that? 38 parents that's grieving. You know what I mean? Having a lesser amount of that isn't good. It's still a fucked up situation, but it's obviously not as bad. You know what I mean? So the mayor said that he don't think anyone should ever go to that school again, and the school has been permanently shut down. Sorry. As far as what should happen after this, that might be the best thing to happen. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what else they really could do. They definitely got to. I don't know what procedure schools have and everything in Texas or in just that area, whatever it may be. But they really need to reiterate the procedures when it comes to the students, hall monitors, principals, if schools get in those situations. Now, above all, we gotta do something about gun laws. You know what I mean? Like obviously the gun laws that we have now and when how people have to go about getting guns, it isn't working because a lot of people keep getting these weapons and they're killing is mass shootings. You know what I mean? So and I guess, I wasn't even gonna talk about this, but in the same breath, like I said, we gotta do something about these gun laws. Because in Buffalo, New York, that shooting targeting black people. You know what I mean? Like how was he able to, if he is mentally unhealthy, whatever, he might have some mental health issues. How was he able to even get that type of weapon or any weapon at all? You know what I mean? Like, how is he able to even get that type of weapon? It makes no sense to me. So this man enters the grocery store and gets to shooting black people. I guess at one point he pointed a gun at somebody white and what did he say again? He said, sorry, excuse me, my apologies, whatever it may be. Like he was going to shoot him, then he realized he was white, and he's, I'm sorry for even pointing the gun at you. You know what I mean? So he went in there. That was a hate crime. He went in there, shot up everybody that he seen that was black. Like that's just crazy. And I looked at that a little bit more. I haven't did a lot of research on that one. You know what I'm saying? But I did see that he was getting some type of advice from a retired officer, which is crazy. You know what I mean? This retired officer has been said to be racist and part of racist communities. So he was part, as he was an officer, whatever he was like, I'm not sure exactly. He was a cop, a detective, whatever it may be, but he was in contact with people that he hated. You know what I mean? And he was able to do things and get them locked up or harm them mentally, physically, emotionally with his job. And as we all know, there are people in higher powers that are racist like this all the time. It's not a new thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we see this all the time. I actually talked to a guy yesterday when I was at work, and I agree with a lot of stuff he was saying, other than the fact that he felt like with the Roe versus Wade that, because he's into church deep and everything, he felt like no one should be able to have an abortion. You know what I mean? Like, you get pregnant, like, you shouldn't be able to have an abortion. Um, I didn't agree with that. I felt like that is a woman's decision, which I covered on another podcast, Roe versus Wade. Y'all make sure y'all check that out. You hear me? But like I said, he was getting advice and he was running his plans by a retired officer. We as black people, how can we know there's racism everywhere. We know it's people who you can work with. And they hee ha ha all in your face every day. Hey, how you doing? They go home, they wife, their husband asks them how was their day. And one of their first comments is about how they had to deal with some nigger at work. You know what I'm saying? And like you would have no idea. So we don't want to walk around just assuming everybody's racist. And not me in particular, but a lot of African American people, a lot of people of African descent, period. When people of other nationalities, especially white people, do certain things and say certain things, it's hard for us. One of our first thoughts is racist motherfucker. You know what I mean? And I don't agree with that, but everyone should understand where it comes from. Like, we deal with this shit at so many different angles. It's just crazy for us. Like, waking up, I had to tell this guy, I had a conversation with him at my job yesterday also. He spoke on the George Floyd situation. And he was like, how many times they take him in and out the car? I'm like, a couple times. Why? He was like, if he would have just stayed in the car, none of this ever would have happened. Now, at the time, I'm working and everything, so I couldn't remember all the details of what happened that day. But one thing I can say and told him is, whatever reason they took him in and out the car, right now I can't say, I can't remember. But it does not make it okay for them to put him in a legal hold that ended up in him losing his life. He's calling for his mom who was passed away. She's no longer even with him. You know what I mean? He's saying he can't breathe. There's people on the sideline saying he can't breathe. So the cops know he couldn't breathe. He had 3 people on his body, one on his neck, on his mid area, and then on his legs. For, was it 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes? There's no excuse for that. You know what I mean? So whether or not he should have stayed in the car, to me, that's irrelevant. So yeah, I had a good conversation with that gentleman. And I love having those kind of conversations with people. But hey, look, this is the episode I actually wanted to do a while ago, but I just wanted to get a little bit more facts straight and make sure, I just wasn't saying shit on here. But once again, you came and caught these waves with your homeboy Cuff. Thanks for tuning in to the BrainSurfin podcast.